Hello, welcome to the MuseScore Café for today, Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. My name is Marc Sabatella. I'm the Director of Education for MuseScore, and this is my weekly series of informal video chats that I do where I pick some topic to talk about and talk about some things having to do with MuseScore or making music in general. And it's live, so anyone who's online can be chatting and asking questions, and I'm happy to talk about anything. And I know there was a question last week that I wasn't able to get to because we were having that interview, and thought I might be able to work it in, but didn't. So if you're still around, I will try to answer that. So hello everyone who's here online. Um, the thing that I picked to talk about today is, well, broadly, I call it using your ear. There is a general term that's used of ear training, which is, I don't know. I have issues with a lot of things about music education, and have my own ways of doing things sometimes. And that term tends to be pretty loaded, and loaded by which I mean it has connotations where people associate it with certain things that aren't necessarily all that relevant. I mean, you spend a lot of time learning techniques and then wondering, well, why am I doing this and what good does it do? And the idea of ear training is fabulous, and I'd like to talk about what it really is about, or should be about, and can be useful for in a variety of different contexts. So, yeah, those are some of the things. I've got a lot of scattered thoughts, so I'll just try to cover what I can, and feel free, as always, to be commenting, asking questions. So, if first of all, the thing that I remember hearing about last time had something to do with what, building chords and tablature? Was that? Now I've forgotten the comment. Anyhow, if it wasn't clear what exactly it was about, so if the person who was asking me that is around, feel free to give me more information on what it is that you were looking for. All right, so let me just start talking about the basic idea of why ear training is a thing. I mean, obviously, music is an aural thing, right? It's something that we listen to. In order to play an instrument, in principle, you don't have to be able to hear a thing. And ironically enough, that's what I'm looking at here is a piece by Beethoven, who, could hear most of his life, but started to lose his hearing and was largely deaf by the end, and was still composing music. So what does that really mean? I mean, you're composing music, you can't physically hear what you're composing, and yet you know what it sounds like. This is, to me, what the essence of ear training is about, to know what music is sounding like, whether you're actually hearing it or not, and be able to translate from what you're seeing to what it's going to sound like. That's not the only aspect to it, but that's a way of looking at it. That idea that you can just take a piece of music that you've never seen before and sing it. That seems like a useful skill. It's certainly useful if you're in a choir or something, and maybe you're being handed some music that you haven't had time to work on yet, and you need to be able to, sound out your parts. That skill, sight singing, is quite useful. But this other skill of hearing, of seeing something and just knowing what it's going to sound like, Beethoven wasn't given this piece of music and then asked what it was going to sound like. He heard something in his head and had to write it down. Well, now that's a different aspect of ear training that's just as useful. Hearing something in your head and then executing it. So in Beethoven's case, it was executing it by writing it down on paper. I've written some compositions in which I wasn't anywhere near an instrument, and I kind of would say I was doing the same thing. I was hearing something in my head and writing it down. Then there's a question of being a jazz musician, which, as you all know, I am. We improvise, basically, is what we do. And in improvisation, you're hearing a melody in your head that you've never heard before in your life. You've just made it up. And now you have to play it. And you don't have time to stop and think about it. You just got to play it. And so that's a skill, hearing something in your head and then being able to play it. And even if you're not necessarily a jazz musician, but are perhaps playing in a a rock band or whatever else, the idea of playing by ear, hearing a song on the radio and deciding I want to be able to play this. These are all connected skills, and so I really want to talk about some of the things that are going on. Okay, so question about the about connecting a keyboard. So at noon, I'm guessing that was a typo there, but if you have a MIDI keyboard connected, the main trick is to connect it first before you start MuseScore. If it's connected and turned on before you start MuseScore, everything should just work. And by just work, I mean then you can use the MIDI keyboard to enter notes exactly in the same way that you would typing them. In other words, you still select a duration, play a note, select a duration, play a note. If you're expecting to just be able to play the piano in real time and having the notation show up, that's way beyond that. That's sort of an artificial intelligence thing that we don't really deal with. But yeah, if your keyboard is connected, it should work. It could be the case on some people's keyboards that you might only have 32-bit MIDI drivers, in which case you need to either find 64-bit drivers or download the 32-bit version of MuseScore. If you've asked here, I don't remember seeing it, and that might be why I didn't see it. If you've asked on the forum, it's asked quite often on the forum and answered quite often on the forum. So definitely that's the place I would go first for technical questions about MuseScore is go to the forum on musescore.org. But in any case, hopefully that helps. It really should be as simple as what I just said. You just connect the keyboard, turn it on, and it is just there. So you just enter notes normally, go to note input mode, start playing some notes, and they'll enter one at a time. Okay, so I've talked about all these different aspects of why ear training might be useful. And I haven't talked so much about what's... actually, let me write down a little note to myself of something else that I want to make sure I mention. Okay. Cool. So good morning, good afternoon. Hi, everyone. All right. So the reason I have this piece selected is I was doing a demonstration in something I was teaching yesterday in which I was basically singing a melodic line that I was improvising. It wasn't intended to be like an improvised solo, like a jazz scat thing. I'm not that kind of singer. But the piece wasn't this piece, but it was in the same key and had some similarities. And my voice is hoarse, and so I'm silly to be trying to do this, but whatever. You'll discover, if you don't already know, I am not a singer, but I do well enough to get the job done. What I want to do is talk about some general things. So first of all, I know this piece. If you don't already know it, well, you should. And let's hear MuseScore play the first few bars. First 8 bars I'm going to go with, because that's let me make sure the volume is where I need it to be. All right, first 8 bars is the main theme. And then he basically repeats the melody again up an octave. So this is Beethoven, the second movement of Beethoven's Sonata Pathétique, which, by the way, before I forget, let me go to where I have... So this is the official MuseScore page for that piece. Anyone who's uploaded a piece that's been officially recognized as this piece shows up on this page. There's other people who have uploaded other versions that don't necessarily show up on the page. Pathétique. And I had mentioned this a couple weeks ago in the context of the third movement and a spot in it that I really wanted to show, and I could not find the dang thing. I had mentioned it, and I just want to play this because it's kind of moderately interesting. It's this situation in which there is what is in classical harmony referred to as an augmented sixth chord. A jazz musician might recognize it as a tritone substitution, and it's going to be this chord right here when we get there. So what we have here is something that by all rights, if I call that C flat a B, call this E flat a D sharp, I have B, D sharp, and A. That's 3 notes of a B7 chord, and this F is like a flat 5. So this is like a total jazz type sound, but it's obviously not jazz. And then resolving to a B flat chord. We have a B7 chord with a flat 5 resolving to a B flat 7 chord. So we have an altered dominant going down a half step. That is basically the sound of the tritone substitution, but this is also the sound of the augmented sixth chord. And being able to hear these sounds and really have them in your head is all part of what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to be talking about anything quite so complicated. What I am going to talk about is various aspects of what it means to then be able to use your ear. So first, I just want to look at this piece as is. Excuse me. And I'm if you've heard the piece before, you're mostly familiar with this melody. Okay, I'm down an octave. Right, that's the melody. In Beethoven's writing, and in any really great composer's writing, there are not equally interesting, but equally effective melodies to be had elsewhere in the piece. And this is one of these things that being able to sound them out by ear as you're writing can be very useful, so that you kind of know while you're writing what it's going to sound like. Now, yes, MuseScore will play it for you, or you could be at the piano and writing it. And so you might think, oh, I don't have to know what it's going to sound like before I play it, because as soon as I play it, I know what it sounds like. This is true. And I've written many pieces at the piano using this sort of trial and error approach, is maybe how I describe that. But I do want to at least put in a case for not always doing that. In other words, sometimes writing by thinking first before you actually play the thing. And the reason is this. I might hear something in my head. Do, do, bum. That note I heard. Do, 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 do. I just made up a melody. That note, and maybe the chord that I'm hearing in my head that goes with it, I hear this thing pretty clearly. The moment I go over to the piano and attempt to find that by trial and error, I have now interfered with my melody of what I originally heard in my head. I will very likely settle for the first thing I find that's close enough to what I originally heard. I've seen this over and over again working with students when I, maybe check out some composition they've written, and there's some spot in it where they're like, what they put down is not what they meant. And they'll say that. They'll say, I couldn't figure out what the sound is, so I wrote this. That's not what I had in mind. And the problem is you're never going to get back what they originally had in mind. In some cases, because they moved on and kept writing more stuff, and now they've lost the memory. Even just 10 seconds later, though, the memory's not completely gone, but it's obscured by what you just played. And now your brain is a little confused, and you're not hearing what you originally heard clearly anymore, because now you're also hearing this other thing that's not what you heard, but what you tried instead. So anyhow, that's, it's the original might be gone. So this is a reason why sometimes it can be really useful to slow down and really be clear about what you're doing. So I mentioned improvisation. In an improvisation standpoint, you don't get to slow down. You just got to play it. And so, okay, whatever. If what comes out isn't exactly what you had in mind, tough. It's what came out. You got to deal with it. And then you respond to that. But ideally, you'd be able to play exactly what you heard in your head, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I just want to point out a couple things about this piece, and then we're going to look at a couple other things that we might do with it. So I just sang through that melody. I want to sing through this line, which I might look at this as an SATB arrangement. It's not really. But if I think of this as the soprano voice, this as the alto voice, this as the tenor voice, and this as the bass voice, he's relatively consistent about this. So check out this alto part. Ba ba da 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 boo da 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 dum. At this point, it's a little bit of a cheat. This is a pianistic cheat. We often do. If I was singing this line, I would have taken that D up to the E flat. But we didn't need to do that, and he wanted to keep the rest of the chord going. So he allows this D to come down to this B flat. If he was writing it for voice, he might not have done that. Maybe he would have, I don't know. But I'm guessing that he wouldn't have. So ba do da da dum ba da dum ba bum, and then I guess that voice just disappeared for a minute. I'm just gonna pretend it's a G, and then we have the G to the A flat. So why did that voice disappear for a minute? Well, it's because now that this voice is moving down like this, he recognized that it had nowhere to go. It's getting squeezed from both sides, and there's not really room for this voice to do something reasonable. Now he could have put a note just on the downbeat of the beat here, not the downbeat, but the first 16th, and then let it ride for the rest. But whatever. This is again a pianistic thing. If you're dealing with this writing for voices, or really any instruments, probably you wouldn't just leave this instrument out to dry for this measure. You'd give him something to do. You'd find something to do. But when you're writing for piano, you get to let voices disappear, come in and come out when it's convenient for logistical purposes. And this idea that a lot of the decisions he made have to do with the fact that, well, he was writing for piano, therefore you can get away with certain things. But it's not just getting away with certain things, it's also maybe the piano forces you into certain things. Like if he had wanted, maybe he didn't want to have both these voices go up like this. Maybe he would have loved to have contrary motion, have the alto voice go down from here. But realistically, the piano, you can't do that. Your hand can't separate out to do that. So if the melody's going to go up in your pinky, your thumb's going to go up too. There's no way around it. So I'm not saying you can't have contrary motion, but you're limited in how much of it you can do when writing for piano. So what I want to do is I'll do a little bit of just recasting this, not pianistically, but look at it a little bit. Well, how might someone write this piece if they were writing for voices or an instrumental ensemble? So is there a way to connect to Note Performer? So there isn't currently. Note Performer requires connections by, is it VST? I forget what it uses. It uses something that we don't support now. It is something we would love to support eventually, but there are licensing issues as far as the libraries and the code. In order, for open source code to be what it is, everything associated with it has to be open source. Now, Note Performer isn't. But it doesn't have to be. But the interface, the way we connect to Open Note Performer, we would have to have an open source way of connecting to it, and the licenses would have to be compatible, and blah blah blah. There's technical issues, there's licensing issues. They are both being worked on. That's best I can say. I don't know. For me personally, I write music to be played by musicians, and I'm perfectly happy with the built-in playback. Every once in a while, I'll experiment with loading another sound font to see if I like it better, and typically I'll like some instruments better and others not as much. But if you're someone who wants to then really tweak the sounds of what you're doing, you can either export the a score to MIDI and then load it into a digital audio workstation, or just use the MIDI output from MuseScore and route that into the audio workstation and have a ball with it that way. It's not really my field of expertise, but it's it's possible. So yeah, I don't know the exact details of how this all works with the licensing and all. I just know it's something that people have a handle on, and it's kind of on the roadmap of something that I wouldn't be surprised to see coming someday. So anyhow, I sang through this alto line. Let me just quickly go through the tenor line. I'm gonna go up octave, I think, but now I'm in the actual right octave. But it's a really boring tenor line. It's a lot of E flats. But but da 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 da. I mean, is this all tenor? I guess so. Do 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 dum. So it's a boring line, but that's the job of the tenor, to be boring, not to not take anything away from what the soprano, what the melody is doing, to fill in the chord in a melodically pleasing way. Now, the bass line is intended to be a little more interesting, but also more functional. I mean, it's got to be dealing with roots, and so you are going to see more skips. You're going to see more of this circle of fifths sort of thing. Boom, boom, boom. So I can't sing it in that octave. Boom, boom, boom. Right? So this sort of circle of fifths skipping, basses are going to have to do that. But he's not only doing that. He's got some really nice voice leading through use of inversions. I mean, we have an E flat chord here, the 5 chord, but he doesn't have the root in the melody. He's got the 7th in the melody. And then it's back to an A flat, back to the 1 chord, but he doesn't have the root in the melody here either. He's got the 3rd in the melody. So he's got the 7th here, resolving to the 3rd there, creating some really nice voice leading. And then here again we have an E flat chord, the 5 chord. So this is 1, 5, 1, 5. But the bass line isn't boom, 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 boom. It's bum, ba, da, dum. So I actually cheated and played on it. I shouldn't have. I should have thought my way through it. 1, 4, 3, 7. And then 1, 7, 6, 6. I have to struggle because I'm not a singer, but there's my thing and my voice is going. 5, 5, and then 4, 4, 3, 6, 2. I would jump the octave. 5, 1. All right, there you go. So I'm singing scale degrees. So this is another thing I should mention. This is a worldwide forum here. In the United States and some other countries, we use a solfege system. In other words, we use solfege syllables, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, in a key-dependent way. So this, in the key of A flat, is considered do. Do, fa, mi, ti, do, ti, la, la, so, fa. Right? So this is something that we do at least in English-speaking countries. I don't know how many other countries do it, but I know a lot of countries use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do or si instead of ti, as note names. So this is do, right? This note here, which in English-speaking countries we call si, that would be called do in France or Spain or Italy. So that's fine. We have another term for that in English-speaking countries. We'll refer to that as fixed do, where do is always si. Well, that's all well and good. The nice thing about this other thing that I'm talking about is what's called a movable do. Do is whatever scale degree 1 is, and that's hard for people who grew up thinking of do as always si. It's hard for them to wrap their brains around. Well, that's fine. I don't actually like I like the idea of movable do, but it's too much work for me to remember syllables. So I don't like to think that way. I sing numbers. 1 4 3 7 1 7 6 6 5 5. I can sing numbers. I can keep that in my head. Sounds like me. Okay. Yeah. So for recording, that is very true. You definitely it's good to have good recordings of things. I'm never impressed enough by any of the things that I've heard to be willing to spend extra money dealing with them. But in any case, yeah, note performer someday. Won't be surprised to see it. Um, so this is some really interesting motions here of how he uses inversions to give good voice leading. And for me to be able to sing that, that was, I'm not going to claim is like super useful in itself, but it kind of is actually. Because now I can go through. In fact, I'm just going to go because it's fun. Wait a minute, I missed a comment here. Or 3 2. Okay, yeah. So those are pitches 3 2 5 4 3. Is that what you're singing? Yeah, and that, so that to me is the melody. 3 2 5 4 3 5 1. Now at this point, I have to, like, because I know the melody, I'm singing what I know. I'm not really like calculating that that's an A flat and then thinking that's one. So there's a certain amount of brain that has to go into this when you're doing it for real. So like if I want to do this for real, what I might want to do is just, there's not like a I'm feeling lucky button. I kind of want one, right? I'm gonna just take some random piece of music that I've never seen before. Symphonic nonsense. Ah, that sounds great. All right. Oh, key of A flat. Beautiful. Oh, look at that. Oh, how lucky can I be? Is it A flat or is it F minor? Yeah, it looks like A flat. Okay. So, bomb was my A flat. I got enough pitch memory to remember that. Um, so this is 5 5 1 boom bum bum boom bum 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 da 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 dum. I saw that accidental and I had to like just think. No, I lost my pitch again. Boom, 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 ba da 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 da. Bum would have been the A flat. Bottom. So I can hear what this melody sounds like. Mum, ba da 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 dum. Oh, big leap here. All right, so now here's the next thing. Big leap. If I know my Bonnie, I know how to make that thing. My Bonnie lies. Oh da 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 da. Great. My Bonnie bailed me out here because I know a major sixth is my Bonnie. Now the reality is I wasn't really thinking that this was a major sixth. If you know your intervals and know how to sing them, great. I'm glad. But the problem with the way we usually learn to sing intervals, and I've been on this soapbox before, but what the heck, I mentioned I've got a lot of random things to talk about. The problem is the way we learn to sing what a major sixth is by associating it with some song that starts with a major sixth. And the typical one that's used in English-speaking countries is My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, or if you're a certain age, maybe NBC. I think they still maybe use that as a theme song, but that's only good in the United States. Um, any number of other songs. You should take the A train. So there's particular songs that we can associate with that major sixth leap, especially major sixth leaps up. The problem is they're all leaps because it's occurring at the start of a song, and the song usually starts with the one chord. The one place you can get a major sixth is to leap from so to mi, or scale degree 5 to 3. So mi do, that is NBC, and that's the only place you can ever hear NBC is when you're hearing so to mi over a tonic triad. If a major sixth occurs anywhere else, you're really you're hosed. I mean, you're not. I'm not going to say you won't be able to sing it with effort, but it's not going to come very naturally to you. And the things any work you put into recognizing the NBC theme or My Bonnie or anything else is going to fail you a little bit if you're forced to sing a major sixth in some other context. And so I'm not thinking that way. I think more about scale degrees where necessary. If there's a big leap, like in this case, if I didn't know that thing was coming, I might have gone 5. Oh my gosh, I can't sing all the way to this note here. I'm going to go to 1. And then I'm going to think, okay, where is that note relative to 1? 1, 2, 3. So I will jump to a note I'm confident about, do or so, and then step my way somewhere else. No, this is Patrick. Okay, that's an inside joke that I'm not getting. All right. So yeah, it's a perfect fourth and a major third. That's pretty much what I just sang, except I'm not thinking about the intervals. I'm thinking about the scale degrees more. I thought this was 5, and I know where 1 is. I can always remember 1. Hopefully I haven't drifted too much. No, I'm doing all right. So I'm thinking I can nail a 1, and then I can go up to 3 or walk up to the 3 if I need to. So I have the ability to be able to kind of sight sing my bum bum bo ba bum bum, and I'm gonna guess bum comes next, another bum, right? So I can sing my way through a fair amount of music, maybe not like up to tempo. If I did it for a living, if I really practiced my singing and did a lot of sight singing in choirs and stuff, I'd just not good enough singer for that anyone would want me in their choir. But if I did it enough, I would get good enough to be able to maybe do this in real time. So that idea that you can maybe use intervals some to help you, but it's not going to be the be all end all. It's really going to be also about using some other tricks. So like in particular, I mentioned this major sixth occurring between scale degree 5 and scale degree 3. Well, there's also a major sixth that occurs between, say, scale degree 2 and scale degree 7, but that doesn't sound anything like NBC when you hear it in context. And of course, I'm not going to find that in this song, or am I? Is there another major sixth? This is a perfect fifth. I'm looking for leaps in the melody. I'm sure there's some somewhere. Nope, that's a minor sixth. But that particular leap between scale degree 2 and scale degree 7, you might see in the context of a 5 chord. And but we don't have it here. But for instance, ba ba doo dum bum bum, I'm gonna just boo da 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 bum. All right, I'm on scale degree 2. And then if I were to leap up to 7, 2 to 7 in that context, NBC. All right, it is NBC, but it's like in this totally unrelated key. It messes with my brain. I don't hear it that way. I heard that 2 to 7. I heard that 7 because I knew it was right below that 1, and I knew where that 1 was. So that's kind of what I'm hearing a little more. That's a little of the technique of how I go about doing these things. But let me just talk about this other thing. Oh, I'm gonna show you a little MuseScore technique here. I deliberately didn't do this in advance because I wanted to show you. What I'm doing is I'm producing a reduction or a simplification of this. And now one thing is, I learned this piece on piano, and yes, it's written as 16th notes, but I don't hear this as one beat at a super slow tempo. I hear ba da da, right? I'm hearing this at basically double the time of this, or half the time, however you want to think of it. So what I want to do is I'm going to select this passage, and now I'm going to use the selection filter, which is under the view menu. I guess I must have turned it on at one point, so let me turn it off so you can just see it come back. View, selection filter, shortcut is F6, and I'm going to turn voice 2 off. So now only voice 1 is selected. And now I'm going to Control C to copy. Now I'm going to go over here to where I have this piece, and I want to paste it. Well, if I just paste it, I'm going to get my original version, which is 4/4 quarter notes. But as you can see, I actually converted this to 4/4. I want this to be half note, dotted half note. So I'm going to undo that. And instead, I'm going to use Edit, Paste, Double Duration. Check this out. Boom. How cool is that, right? So that's a feature I've showed before, but many of you probably haven't seen it. And I don't really want that dynamic in there because it's just going to get in my way. Hello. Oh, no. Voice. Oh, I'm I keep switching between keyboards, and my other keyboard backspace is delete, and this one has a separate backspace and delete key, and so I keep forgetting on this keyboard I need to press delete. I'm also going to get rid of all the slurs just because I want to keep this simple. So I right click, select all similar elements, and then delete. Cool. And I'm going to do the same for these staccatos. I will right click one, select all similar elements, delete. Just because it's a little distracting to me. And then that G was part of a chord. I don't need that. All right, so now I have my melody. All right, that's too fast. So let's go with, I believe, Shift-Alt-T is tempo? Yeah. All right. I don't know. Let's see if 80 is it. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm just going to go with that. So I have this happening here. Now, one of the things that's really interesting, and this is how it came up last night, so humor me on this. I'm going to sing another line. So Beethoven wrote in a couple lines here. He wrote in basically a alto part. Let me make sure I re-enable voice 2 in my selection here in case I need to do anything with it later. He wrote in basically an alto part and a tenor part, but he did it in this pianistic way. You're not going to ask sopranos and tenors to go bing, boom, bing, boom, like a handbell choir or something. Nor are you going to ask one singer to go bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, or bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom. This isn't very choral. It's not how he would have arranged that piece. And you know, you can look further on in the piece and see later Beethoven himself decides, hey, what's it sound like if I use 16 triplets instead? And then, you know, theme and variations is the thing. I mean, he totally left to his own devices. If he needed to, he would have gladly rewritten this melody a different way. I mean, harmonized it or arranged it a different way, even if he was going to use the same harmonies. And this, I should mention, as within the realm of classical melodic themes, when I was growing up, I remember 2 different pop songs that used this exact same melody. Billy Joel did one, and someone else who I don't remember did one. I just remember one of the lyrics was, "This night is mine, so lonely without you," I think was the thing. I think I probably have the words wrong. But there was another, within a year of it, someone else had a pop song, different melody, different lyrics to the same melody. It's just a really nice singable melody, and it's sort of deserving of being set a few different ways. And Beethoven would not have objected to that. He did resetting. Most classical composers reset their own works many times. And if you write for piano, you eventually realize when you adapt it for orchestra, it's just going to be different. It's not going to be a direct translation of what you wrote for piano. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to play with this for a minute. I'm going to hear it. So I want to maybe play with the idea of coming up with another line to add to this. Boom, boom, bum, I'm missing the fifth. I've got a root and I've got a third in my chord, so maybe I'm going to have a fifth, fifth, fifth. If I just tried to fill in the missing notes, that would get me somewhere right away. E flat, E flat, and G are both missing notes here, so I'd have to think about which one I care about more. And then A flat is the missing note on this chord. And then E flat is the missing note, as is E flat, G, B flat. But I think actually, if I was just on A flat, maybe I'm going to let it be a B flat because the E flat is still being held out here. And I'm okay with there occasionally being a root missing on a chord. Um, so I have E flat, E flat. No, here I held on to the E flat, but since G is a missing note also, and maybe the ear is still hearing the E flat from here, even though I'm going to change pitches here, I'm going to go ahead and sing a G here. It's going to leave the E flat out of the chord, but again, especially as a jazz person, we play rootless voicings quite often. We just usually that's because the bass player's got the root, but that's okay. I'm still going to be okay with just hearing the G here. If you like, you can think of this as a diminished chord. It's the 7 chord instead of the 5 chord, right? The 5 chord is E flat, G, B flat, D flat, E flat 7. But just the G, B flat, D flat is the 7 chord, the diminished chord. And so if I sing a G here, that's what I've got. I've turned it into a 7 chord. So I've got my E flat, G, A flat, and then B flat. And then when I come here, I could jump to the E flat because that's the missing note, but I feel no. I feel I'd rather, I feel like I don't feel like jumping from the B flat to the E flat. That feels pointless, so I'm going to come back to an A flat here. At this point, maybe I'm reproducing what Beethoven actually had written on the piano. Maybe I'm not. I don't really know, but I'm just going to, if I start with that A flat, and then I've got a G and an E, G and an E flat. If I put a B flat, if I've got A flat, B flat, C. Oh, that was definitely Beethoven's line. And then D, remember that D? Oh yeah, that was a fine line. It was a beautiful line. I can't improve on it. A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat. So that's how I'm going to do it. Except I'm going to take it down the octave. E flat, G. So let's hear this. E flat, G, A flat, B flat, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat. I don't know why I'm singing note names now because I can't think numbers. I mean, I can think them, but not while I'm singing. So I'm just gonna go la 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 la. Ma, da, da. So I've got that going. Well, that's all well and good, but if oh, you got a new line for me here? Is that your line? What's going here? Um, oh, are you singing 5 for this whole measure and then 1 back here? Boom, boom, bum, 5, 1, 7, 6, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I'm not so not sure exactly how that's fitting. I tried to make that fit, and I felt like it was working for a little bit, but then I feel like I'm misinterpreting something about it. But that could have been cool too. But what I want to do next is I want to take that idea that I just sang and maybe see what else occurs to me. So I feel like balance-wise, I need to hear more. Need to hear more piano, more MuseScore, less me, right? But I also feel my low octave is interfering with this. So as painful as it is for me to get up to that high E flat, I'm going to have to take that octave. So is my note. Ba-doo-dum. All right, I can handle that. What I want to do now, though, is maybe have fun with that line a little bit. So we're not going to have that alternating 16th note thing. That's okay. Maybe I don't need it. But I'm going to maybe improvise a little bit with that line rhythmically, okay? And just see what happens. And maybe add some extra passing tones, decorate it a little bit. Let's see. Bum, bum. Oh, I forgot where I was. Bum. voice. That's right where my crack is. But yeah, just throwing little things like that, these little passing lines, that's part of what's going to make this feel like it's worth singing. Um, because we're not going to have those alternating sixteenths. No, I was doing with the. Let me finish my thought, and I'll come back to that thought. So if I were to try to write that, maybe I would try to like put that in there. Let me just go ahead and add this in another voice. I had. Oops, it's a couple of sixteenths. I don't remember if this is exactly what I sang, but now I'm doing it. I think is what I sang, something like that. And then a couple sixteens. I'll just let that be a sixth. Let that be the half note, and then boo. And then this time I remembered I kind of had I was on that dotted quarter thing, so I kept with the dotted quarter. Jazz terms, we call that enclosure. You can call it a cambiata or changing tones. You can call it other things. It's got or sorry, not it's not a cambiata. It is a double neighbor tone passage, if you want to look at it that way. Bum, bum, Actually, I think it was. I think I had D, D, F, and then E. Whoops. E flat. So that's more or less what I sang. So I'm not going to claim this was great music making. It was just what came to me off the top of my head. I'm already like looking at it going, oh, well, that doubled the melody. Not crazy about that one, but whatever. I could change that around and do something different with it. The point is, I'm letting my ear tell me a little bit about what I want to do. I'm trying to make this be a singable melody, so by gosh, I'm singing it. And even if I was writing this for like a brass choir, I still want that French horn part, which is what this is I'm talking about at this point, to feel singable. All right, so let me hear what Alex's idea is here. I'm doing one with the second half note rubbed. Oh, okay. So you were doing that. I wasn't actually. I sort of avoided doing that because I thought you weren't doing that. But let's make another copy of this. And I'm going to copy these first few bars because after all, that is what happens. So you've got a 5 and then a 1 here. Okay. And then the 7 happens probably in the middle of that measure. Is this, whoops, kind of like that, or I guess more quarter note. A, G. I'm going to guess that was your 7. And then 6 here, doubling that. Nope, maybe I'm not sure. Maybe your 7 was actually here. Is that what you meant? Put a G there. It changes the harmony, but I'm fine with that. Let's just hear what we got. So, we have now changed what used to be a 1 chord into a C minor chord, which is our 3 chord. So that is fine. If that's what you meant, I approve. So there you go. So lockstep with the melody, right? That is what I'm doing here now. So that is your 7, and so you have that as a half note, a dotted half note. So that's your 7, and then you have a 6. At this point, I wish I could type the numbers, but because I have to do math again. F6, and then 5, and then 1, 3, C, 4. Okay. That's because I'm not singing. I'm like singing one thing and playing something different. All right. So when you say 4, do you mean actually the sharp 4, this D natural, because that was the original harmony? We could go with just the D flat if we wanted. Let's hear what this sounds like. Okay, so that was literally doing what you have there, I think, if I got that right. 5, 1, 3, 4. Oh, 2. 2? All right, I feel like at this point I'm misunderstanding probably something again because that's probably not it, but whatever. Um, I because this wasn't my melody or my harmonization, I'm doing some trial and error here and listening to it. If this was what was coming in my head, though, I would be hearing it in my head, and I wouldn't be relying on MuseScore's playback so much. The problem is I can hear what this sounds like in my head, but I can't convey it to you because I can only sing one note at a time. So if I want to convey to you what it sounds like, I use the playback on it. But in my head, I'm actually hearing this pretty well. So there's a little dissonance that happened here, which is what made me wonder if maybe I have this thing wrong. This is like an A flat chord, but with a G in the bass, A flat major 7th. So anyhow, this idea that I could take this and harmonize it in, keeping Beethoven's harmony intact, but maybe putting my own voice leading on it, using my ear to guide me, is a pretty powerful thing. And now I'm going to do this next step is I got this much. I'm just going to get, since I'm now uncomfortable with that double D flat, I'm going to change that and go this way, make it be a passing tone, a neighboring tone. Bum, boo ba dum, boo ba dum. So that should work. Okay, so that's all fine. What if I wanted a fourth voice for this? Well, I don't. Beethoven's fourth voice, I remember. Remember that one? It was just the E flat, E flat, E flat, E flat, E flat. It was a lot of E flats. Let's have fun with this thing. Let's put an obbligato on it. Right? I'm going to make an obbligato. Obbligato is a technical term it's sort of this ironic term because it sort of means, well, it's like an extra melody that gets thrown on top of the other melody, and I feel like this melody could use an obbligato. So that's my classical excuse for what I'm really doing, which is making up a jazz improvised solo. But once I like the sound of it and work it out, I might write it down. But I'm probably going to wrap up after this. I have some concluding remarks. I'm going to listen to this for a second. All right, I'm going to come up with an obbligato, a very simple additional melody that goes on top of this. And I still feel like I need more MuseScore, less me to make this effective. So that was a melody. I just made it up and I already forgot it because it was an improvisation, and that's what they are. It was something very close to that, wasn't it? Okay, I don't want to steal the thunder of this D, even though I'm kind of cheating it here. Maybe I'm gonna let that guy have that note a little longer, because I don't want to lose that note. But that's kind of what I'm doing, and maybe I want to get a little more specific about it. Like here, I've got this E flat chord. Maybe I really want to hear this flat 9, or if you want to think of it as diminished chord, I want to make it a fully diminished chord. I want to put an E natural on that. So Ba-do-da-dum is how that note's gonna go. Ba-do-da-do-ba-do-da-dum. And maybe I want that E natural over here. Well, the problem with the E natural here is it kind of clashes with that E flat there, but I can live with that. Anyhow, I'm really trying to hear these interesting notes and find my way to them vocally, and as a person trying to write another line, that's the kind of thinking I want to have. What makes sense as a melody? Really tie it to what I'm hearing, and then, but also trying to make sure I'm doing good things relative to the chord, and maybe hearing it relative to the notes that are already there. But hey, I could change these notes too, right? If I decided that the note that I want in my obligato doubles this note, well, I can change this note. So anyhow, these are some of the things that I mean when I talk about what ear training is good for. So I want to come back to that idea of a jazz musician improvising and saying, well, it's playing something you've never heard before by ear. And I want to talk about, and this is what I was doing, right? I was taking a melody I was hearing in my head and singing it. And I will tell you right now, I failed when I got to this spot. I got flustered and thrown off by whatever this note is here. It's creating a B flat seventh chord here. 5 of 5 is what it's doing, but my ear wasn't quite hearing it, and so I would have to work on this passage. Boo da da dum. There's that dee doo ba boo doo dum boo dum. I'd have to, really try to think my way through what are some of the interesting notes are. Boo da 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 da. F sharp G is a line that could work, but not with that F in the bass. I'd have to think about boo da dum, B flat, boo. B flat is really the root. Boo da da dum. If I can get the B flat in the bass, then I can have B flat D F. F sharp G, because that F sharp G creates this augmented chord going in there. Anyhow, so once I have an opportunity to think my way through this, then I'd be able to do this. But I wouldn't be able to do it with that F in the bass. So I'd have to change the harmony a little bit, give this that. I don't know why I'm doing this, I just am. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Boom, ba-doo-dum is what I'm going for. Ba-doo-dum. The thing is, I have to land on that F to hear it. If I land on that F, I'll hear it, but I can't force my way to that F. I'm not that good, so I'm gonna have to think my way to it. E flat, F, F sharp, G, E flat. I'm gonna start on E flat, E flat, F, F sharp, G. All right, I'm gonna wait on the F sharp till I get here. I need just a quarter note and a quarter note. All right. All right, so that could totally work, or I could wait until the eighth note. Anyhow, so when I understand what's happening, I can hear it. I can maybe improvise there, especially if I happen to find my way to a note I like. I can then hear where it wants to go. Why? Because, well, this is what I do, and this is the kind of skill I want to work on, not whether I can sing a major sixth on command. It's, can I hear this note in this context over this harmony and hear where an interesting place for it to resolve to? That's the kind of skill that is great to develop, and to my mind, improvising is a great way to develop that skill. You try things out, you hear things, but not just improvising and moving on, but maybe improvising the same measure over and over again. Not the same measure, but improvising over that same measure and trying different things out. So I want to leave you with a few kind of specific kind of practice exercises that are way better than drills of intervals. Way better for this purpose. Yeah, there's value in being able to sing a major sixth on command, no doubt, or to recognize a major sixth when you hear it. But getting back to what I talked about is the actual goals here. Beethoven being able to write music without having heard it. This is a great goal. Being able to sight sing. This is a great goal. Being able to improvise, take a melody you've never heard before and play it on command. Being able to play by ear. These are all great things to be able to do. Let me just tell you a few specific things you can do to work on these skills. So one of them is actually sight singing, taking real melodies and sight singing them. Real melodies you've never heard before, hopefully. So, taking a real melody that you've never heard before, like I did with this one. So this was that piece. Maybe I decide that piece is maybe a little triadic for me, and I want to find something that looks likely. So I don't know what any of these pieces are. I'm just sort of going by what they look like. But I'm not sure. I guess this is at concert pitch. Because if you don't know anything about what's going on with the piece, I mean, I'm looking at the intervals here and going, wow, this looks pretty dissonant here, and that's probably fine. But I could sing through the things. A flat, A is my A, da, 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 da. I'm trying to put myself in the frame of reference of all white notes. Bum, 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 boo. Nope, I didn't get that right. Ba-do-da, bum, ba-do-da, ah-da-da. I'm singing my way through that thing. You can hear me struggling with it, but what I'm doing is I'm cheating. Maybe I don't know what that interval down is at the minor six. Bum was my A, I think. Bum, 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 bum. See, I'm trying to sing this as an E, and it's not, it's a C. But I figured that out. I recognize bum, 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 bum is 1, 5, 1, and I need it to go 1, 5, minor third. So I'm hearing my way down, and then boo doo da dum, that half step boo dum. I'm walking my way up. I'm walking through the scale. That's how I do these things, finding my way through if it's unfamiliar. So singing unfamiliar melodies and then spot checking yourself. If this was in MuseScore, then you could click on that note or do it at the piano or have some instrument in your hand where you try to sing it while mouthing. So this is a great exercise. I don't have my melodica hand me, but I love my melodica. I got 2 of them. One of them got stolen last week, a couple weeks ago. But what I do is I finger the melody and then sing it without playing it, and then blow every once in a while if I want to hear what it would sound like. So that way I'm going through the motions of bum, 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 boo, doo, da, 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 G, 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 C, 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 E, E. I'm singing that tuba part if you haven't figured that out. I think I made that clear. F, F, A, F, G, A, C. Now C is establishing itself as a tonic, so I can find the C without having to count my way to it. When I started on the A, I had trouble finding the C, but now I've got C, C, E, E, F, F, G, A. I'm still having to walk my way from the F to the A. C, I got that one back. E, F, A, C, E. Oh, if I have any doubt where that leading tone is, leading tone, C. C, D, E, C. And is that really the C or is that the A? C, C. There. Now, see, I'm getting confused between the C and the A. This is what happens because I'm still work on this myself. I think that's my A, E, C. No, obviously I've because I C is that is a C. C. Anyhow, yeah, I've drifted enough that, I don't know where I am. Anyhow, this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing, practicing singing these things and checking myself. But if I had the melodica, I would have spot checked myself right on that note right then and there. So practicing sight singing things. Conversely, you can also do that, though, with, like I did with the Pathétique. I've never sung that line before. I'm picking this note to be the alto voice. I've never sung that line before. I've played it before, but I've never thought of it in isolation like that. But was really that makes it more interesting in some ways than taking a random melody, because now I'm hearing this in context because my brain is filling in the rest of that chord. It's actually helping me out finding some of those pitches because my brain remembers how this melody sounds and can fill those things in. So singing the alto part in an arrangement of a melody can actually be a really interesting exercise. Last one that I would say, though, is taking a melody that you know very well, that you've heard a million times, sung a million times, played maybe on an instrument a million times, and writing it out. But if you played it on an instrument, writing it out maybe is cheating. But if you've never actually played it, like Happy Birthday, maybe you've never played it on your instrument, play that sucker, but write that out or try to play it on your instrument by ear. It's a melody you've heard a million times. Try it with like any familiar song, folk songs or whatever, pop songs, classical melodies that you've heard but maybe never played. Take this familiar to you melody and try to sound it out on your instrument, or try to write it out, sing it through, and try to match what you're hearing to the notes and try to get those things down. And then, but don't do it with MuseScore, letting it play the stuff for you, right? Do it in silence using your voice to help you find the pitches as necessary, and then you can use the playback to check yourself. So anyhow, those are some of my pieces of advice as things to practice. That idea of trying to play real melodies by ear, it's great practice for improvisation, because I said that's taking a melody you've never heard before and playing it by ear. Well, playing a real melody by ear, a real melody, one you have heard before, playing that by ear is a good sort of step towards being able to take a brand new melody and play it by ear also. So, looking at my list of things that I want to talk about, I think that pretty well covers it. I've been talking a long time, so I think I'm going to sign off now. And anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed this. It was a lot of sort of scattered thoughts about ear training and the value of the ear, what is going on here. But hopefully it's spurred some sort of thought about some things, and for me, it's helping me organize thoughts if I want to think about how I want to think about going about teaching ear training in the future. I mean, I always teach ear training in little bits and pieces here and there, but I might be teaching an ear training course next semester at college, so I might need to start wrapping my brain around thoughts about that. So anyhow, happy to have you here live, and so next week. Right now, I currently have an appointment I'm trying to reschedule so that I will be able to be here live. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to reschedule it. But if I'm not, then I might have to take a week off. But as always, feel free to give me suggestions for topics and whatever. Just keep making music, and look forward to talking to you next week or next time I do. Thanks. See you later. Bye.